My name is Fatima Nasser. I am a mother. And what I am going to tell you today is the most painful and most beautiful thing that has ever happened to me in my life. I want you to sit down before you read this. I want you to take a breath. Because this story is going to take you somewhere you did not expect to go. It took me somewhere I never expected to go. And I'm still not fully over it. I do not think I ever will be. I grew up in a small city in Jordan. My father was a teacher and my mother stayed home and took care of us. We were 6 children in a small house with 2 bedrooms. We were not rich. We were not poor either. We had food. We had clothes. We had each other. My mother woke up every morning before the sun came up and prayed. My father prayed 5 times every day without missing once. I watched them my whole life and I thought that was what a good life looked like. You follow the rules. You pray. You fast. You trust God. And things will be okay. I married a man named Tariq when I was 22 years old. He was a good man. A quiet man. He worked in construction and he came home tired every night, but he always made time to sit with our daughter Nadia and talk to her. Nadia was everything to us. She was born 2 years after we got married, and from the moment I held her in the hospital I knew she was the most important thing in my life. She had her father's eyes and my mother's smile, and she laughed at everything. Even small things made her laugh. A bird outside the window. A funny face. She was just a happy child. Then Tariq got sick. It started small. He was tired more than usual. He lost weight. He said his stomach hurt. We went to the doctor and the doctor sent us to another doctor and that doctor sent us to another one. By the time they figured out what was wrong, it was already too late to do much. Cancer in his stomach and spreading. The doctors said they could try treatment, but they were not very hopeful. We tried everything we could afford. We borrowed money from family. We sold some things from our home. Tariq fought hard. He was not the kind of man to give up. But his body was giving up on him even when his heart was not ready to. He died on a Thursday morning in the spring. Nadia was 9 years old. I cannot describe to you what that morning felt like. I cannot find the right words even now. I was sitting beside his bed in the hospital and I was holding his hand and then his hand just went still in mine. Just still. Like something left the room. Like the air changed. And I sat there for a long time just holding his hand even though I knew he was already gone. The nurses had to come and gently ask me to let go. Nadia was at home with my mother when it happened. I had to come home and tell her. That was the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. Harder than anything. She was sitting at the kitchen table eating breakfast, and she looked up at me when I came in, and I think she already knew from my face. She did not say anything. She just started crying. And I held her there in that kitchen for a long time, both of us crying, while my mother stood in the corner with her hand over her mouth trying to hold herself together for us. After Tariq died, our house felt empty in a way I had never felt before. Like a piece of the building itself had been removed. His shoes by the door. His jacket on the hook. His cup that he always used for his tea in the morning. Everything reminded me of him. I tried to be strong for Nadia, but there were nights I cried so hard I could not breathe. And I could hear sometimes through the thin wall between our rooms that Nadia was crying too. We were both lost. I threw myself into prayer. I read the Quran every day. I fasted extra days beyond what was required. I went to the mosque more than I ever had in my life. I was looking for something. Some kind of peace. Some kind of sign that things would be okay. That God was still there. That Tariq was in a good place. That my daughter and I would be alright. I wanted to feel something that told me all the suffering had a purpose. But no matter how much I prayed, the emptiness stayed. Nadia changed after her father died. She became quieter. She used to sing around the house. She stopped. She used to bring friends home after school. She stopped doing that too. She still went to school and she still did her homework and she still answered when I spoke to her, but something behind her eyes was different. Like a light had dimmed a little. I watched her and I worried every single day. About 8 months after Tariq died, my cousin called me from Saudi Arabia. Her name is Khalid and she is older than me, a generous woman who has always been kind to our family. She said she wanted to sponsor me and Nadia to come and perform Umrah, the small pilgrimage to Mecca. She said she believed it would help us heal. She said the act of going to the holy city, of praying at the Kaaba, of being surrounded by so many believers all focused on God, would bring peace to our hearts. She said she would pay for everything. The tickets, the hotel, all of it. My first feeling was that I did not want to go. I was tired. I was grieving. The idea of traveling with my daughter to another country felt like too much effort. But everyone around me agreed with Khalid. My mother, my sisters, the women at the mosque. They all said the same thing. It will help you. It will help Nadia. Let God heal you in his house. So I said yes. We flew from Amman to Jeddah and then traveled to Mecca by car. Khalid had arranged a room in a hotel tower near the Grand Mosque. When we arrived and I looked out the window and saw the Kaaba in the distance, that large black cube that I had prayed toward my entire life, I cried. I did not expect to cry. But seeing it with my own eyes after all the pain of the past months, it just broke something open in my chest. I held Nadia close and we both looked out that window for a long time without saying anything. The first 3 days were exactly what everyone said they would be. Beautiful. Peaceful. We did the tawaf, walking around the Kaaba 7 times with thousands of other people all moving together in the same direction. We prayed in the mosque. We drank water from the Zamzam well. We walked between the hills of Safa and Marwa the way the pilgrims have done for thousands of years. Nadia seemed lighter somehow. She held my hand and looked around with wide eyes, and I thought to myself, yes, this was the right decision. This is helping her. But on the 5th night, I woke up in the dark to the sound of my daughter's voice. She was not screaming. That would have scared me less, honestly. She was whispering. Over and over and over, the same sounds coming from her lips while she slept. I sat up in bed and listened, and my heart started beating faster because I could hear what she was saying. She was saying a name. Just one name. Over and over, like she was talking to someone sitting right in front of her. She was saying, I said, Jesus. I got up and went to her bed and shook her shoulder. She woke up slowly, confused, looking around the dark room like she did not know where she was. When her eyes found me, she relaxed a little, but I could see she was upset. I asked her what she had been dreaming. She shook her head and said she did not remember. I did not push her. I thought maybe she was just processing grief. I thought maybe all the religious atmosphere of Mecca had mixed together in her sleeping mind with stories she had heard about prophets. I told myself it was nothing. But it happened again the next night. And the night after that. Every single night in that hotel room, Nadia would start whispering in her sleep. Always the same name. Always Ayasat. Sometimes she would stop for a few minutes and then start again. One night I sat up and counted. She said the name for nearly 20 minutes without waking up. 20 minutes. I sat beside her bed in the dark in the holiest city in Islam and listened to my daughter whisper the name of Jesus in her sleep, and I felt afraid in a way I cannot explain. After about a week of this, I sat Nadia down during the day and told her she had to talk to me. I told her I already knew she was dreaming about something and that I needed her to tell me the truth so I could help her. She looked at her hands for a long time. Then she looked up at me and asked if I would be angry. I promised her I would not be angry. I just needed to understand. What she told me made my heart stop. She said a man in white had been coming to her in her dreams every night. She said his clothes were bright, brighter than normal white, like they had light inside them. She said his face was the kindest face she had ever seen, kinder even than her father's face, and she said that saying that made her feel a little guilty because she loved her father so much. She said the man told her his name was Isa. Jesus. He told her he was the truth. He told her he loved her. He showed her things she said were too beautiful to describe, places she believed were in heaven. He told her that God had not forgotten her. That God knew about her father dying. That God saw every tear she had cried. And that he, Jesus, had come to her personally because she mattered to God. Then she said something that made the room feel smaller. She said the man showed her his hands. And there were scars in his palms. Old scars that still looked like wounds. He told her those wounds were from dying. That he had died for her. For her specifically. And for everyone. He told her that following all the religious rules in the world could not take away the wrong things inside a person's heart. He said only what he had done, dying for sins, could do that. And he said he wanted her to believe in him. I sat there across from my 9-year-old daughter and did not know what to do with any of what she had just told me. My first thought was that this was grief talking. That losing her father had broken something in her mind, and her sleeping brain was creating comfort in the shape of a kind man who told her she was loved. My second thought was darker. In the way I was raised, we were taught that evil spirits can take any form to confuse and lead people away from the truth. We were taught that the devil himself can appear as something beautiful. I thought maybe my daughter was being spiritually attacked. Maybe the fact that she was still grieving and emotionally weak had made her vulnerable. Maybe whatever was coming to her in her dreams was not good at all, no matter how kind its face appeared. I decided I needed help from someone who knew more than me. I went to the Grand Mosque and asked to speak with one of the religious teachers who were available to help pilgrims. A man came to see me. He was older, with a serious face and a long beard. I told him carefully that my daughter had been having strange dreams and that a figure claiming to be Jesus was appearing to her every night and saying things that concerned me. I did not tell him about Nadia whispering the name in her sleep. I was already nervous enough. The teacher's face went very serious very quickly. He asked me many questions. How long had this been happening? What exactly had the figure said? Had Nadia seemed different during the day? I answered as best I could. He told me that what I was describing was a classic spiritual attack by evil spirits who were using the form of Jesus to confuse a vulnerable child. He said this was not an uncommon tactic and that it needed to be dealt with immediately before it became worse. He told me to bring Nadia to him that evening after the last prayer of the night, and he would perform the necessary religious rituals to drive out whatever was troubling her. I want to say something here. I want to be honest with you. When he told me that, I felt relief. I felt relieved that there was an answer, that someone with authority and knowledge was telling me what was happening and offering to fix it. When you are a grieving widow in a foreign country and a religious expert tells you he knows what is wrong and how to fix it, you trust him. You especially trust him when you are standing in the holiest city in the world and everything around you says that God is close and that these men speak for God. I trusted him. I should not have. That evening I brought Nadia to a small room in the mosque complex. There were 3 other men there besides the teacher I had spoken to. Nadia held my hand and pressed herself against my side. She was already nervous. The men began reciting prayers over her. They read from the Quran loudly. They blew on her face and hair the way is done in certain healing rituals. They spoke commands into the air telling evil spirits to leave. Nadia sat very still and did not cry. She just looked small and scared and kept looking at me for reassurance. I kept nodding at her trying to tell her silently that it was okay. When it was over, the teacher told me to take her back to the hotel. He said the dreams should stop now. That night the dream came again. I know because I did not sleep. I lay in my bed in that hotel room watching my daughter. I watched her face in the dark. And about 2 hours after we went to bed her lips started moving. Softly at first. Then a little more clearly. And there it was again. That name. Jesus. That's it. Over and over while she slept, her face actually peaceful, not troubled at all, just peaceful like she was in the middle of a good conversation with someone she trusted. Completely. The next morning I went back to the teacher and told him the prayers had not worked. He looked troubled. He said that if the spirits were still present after such a powerful session, then the situation was more serious than he had originally understood. Then he said something that I have regretted listening to every single day since. He said to leave Nadia with him and the other men for more intensive treatment. He said I should come back the next day to get her. I did not want to do it. Everything in my body said no. I held Nadia's hand outside that room and I looked at her face and I thought about saying no, about taking her back to the hotel, about calling him Khalid and telling her we needed to leave. But the teacher was very calm and very certain. He spoke to me the way people speak when they think they know much more than you and they are being patient about it. He told me that if I interrupted the treatment too early it would make things worse. He said Nadia would be safe. He promised me. I left her there. I walked out of that mosque without my daughter and I told myself I was doing the right thing. I went back to the hotel room and it felt enormous and cold without her in it. I tried to pray. I tried to read. I could not do either. I just sat on the edge of my bed and waited for time to pass. When I went back the next morning I almost fell to the floor. They brought Nadia out and she could barely walk. Her face was swollen. There were bruises on her cheeks and her arms. Her wrists had marks on them like something had been tied around them. When she saw me, she made a sound, not quite a word, just a sound from the back of her throat, and she reached for me. I grabbed her and held her and she was shaking. She was just shaking all over. I turned to the teacher and I asked him what they had done to my child. He told me very calmly that Nadia had been resisting the treatment. He said the spirit inside her was strong and had been making her fight them. He said they had tied her hands for her own protection so she would not hurt herself or them. And he said they had struck her. He used a quiet word for it, not a violent word, but what he meant was that they had hit my daughter. My 9-year-old daughter who had already lost her father and traveled to another country to find some peace. They had tied her up and hit her. I grabbed Nadia's arm and tried to walk out. They blocked the door. 2 of the men stepped in front of me and the teacher spoke again in that same calm voice and told me that Nadia was still not healed. That the spirit had not fully left. That if I took her now without completing the treatment, I would be putting her soul in serious danger. He said I was being emotional. He said I needed to trust the men who knew better. I tried to push past them. They pushed me back. Nadia was crying now and I could feel her holding onto my arm as tight as she could. Then someone pulled her away from me and I heard the door close and I heard her screaming my name from the other side of it and I could not get to her. I do not have words for what that moment felt like. I have tried to find them many times. I cannot. I left that building without my daughter for the second time. But this time it was not a choice. This time I had been pushed out. And I stood on the street outside the mosque in Mecca with the sun coming down on me and thousands of pilgrims walking past me, and I could not move. I just stood there. I do not know how long I stood there. Eventually I started moving. I went to the police. The policeman I spoke to listened to me and then told me that matters involving religious authority in a mosque were not something he could involve himself in. He said it very politely. He explained that the imam and the teachers had the right to conduct spiritual treatment as they saw necessary. He said he was sorry, but there was nothing he could do. I tried to reach Khalid. She was traveling somewhere inside Saudi Arabia and her phone kept going to a recorded message. I left her many messages. She did not call back that day. I went back to the mosque and tried to get past the guards at the entrance to the section where they were keeping Nadia. They would not let me through. I went back to the hotel. I sat on the floor because I could not make myself sit on the bed or the chair. The floor felt right somehow. I sat on the floor of that hotel room in Mecca with my back against the bed and my knees against my chest and I cried. I cried the way I cried when Tariq died. That deep kind of crying that comes from a place inside you that is normally closed off. I cried until I had nothing left. And then something shifted. I do not know how to explain this well. But when you have completely run out of everything, when you have no more strength and no more ideas and no more people to call and nowhere left to go, something inside you can either close down completely or open up in a completely different way. Something in me opened up. I got on my knees on that hotel room floor and I talked to God. But not the way I had been taught to talk to God. Not the formal Arabic words I had said 5 times a day my whole life. Just my own words. Plain and desperate and honest. I said out loud that I did not know what was true anymore. I said that I had followed all the rules my whole life and my husband still died and my daughter was being hurt by religious men in the holiest city in the world and I did not understand any of it. I said that if there was a God anywhere who actually loved people, who actually cared about what happened to a mother and her daughter, then I needed that God to show up right now because I had nothing left. And then I said something that surprised even me as I said it. I said if the dreams Nadia had been having were real. If Jesus was actually real and was actually who he said he was in those dreams, then I needed him to come to me too. I said it out loud. In Mecca. Alone on the floor of a hotel room with the Kaaba visible through the window. I said, Jesus, if you are real, come to me. I must have fallen asleep on the floor. I do not remember closing my eyes. But the next thing I knew I was waking up and the room was different. The light was different. It was not sunlight. It was not the lamp. It was everywhere and it was not like any light I had ever seen before. It was bright but it did not hurt my eyes. It felt warm. It felt like the way you feel when someone who loves you puts their arms around you. Light that felt like that. and there was a man standing in it. He was in white clothes. The same bright white that Nadia had tried to describe to me. His face was calm and his eyes were looking right at me, and I want to tell you something. When he looked at me, I felt like he had always known me. Not just who I was or what my name was. All of me. Every scared thought I had ever had. Every time I had doubted. Every mistake. Every prayer that felt like it went nowhere. Every night I cried into my pillow after Tariq died. He knew all of it, and he was not looking at me with judgment. He was looking at me the way I look at Nadia. Like I was precious to him. I was awake. I need you to understand that. I was not dreaming. I have thought about this many times since, and I know the difference between waking up from a dream and being awake. I was awake. And he was there. He told me his name. He said he was Jesus. He said he was the Son of God. He said he had heard me. He said he had been listening to me that whole night, all of it, all the crying and the desperate words, and he had heard every word. He showed me his hands. The scars were there just like Nadia had described. He told me those scars were because of what he had done for me. For me specifically. He said he had died because of the wrong inside every human being, the deep wrong that no amount of prayer or fasting or following rules can clean up. He said the problem with human beings was not that they needed to try harder. It was that they needed to be rescued. And he said he had come to do the rescuing. He told me that God was not far away. He told me God had never been far away. He told me that all my years of following rules and doing the right things, all of it came from a real desire in my heart to be close to God, and that desire itself was something God put there. But he said no set of rules had ever been the bridge. He said he was the bridge. He told me to go back to the mosque in the morning. He told me to go in and ask for my daughter and to not be afraid and to not stop asking. He said he would give me the words. Then the light was gone. I sat on the floor for a long time after he left. I was not scared. I was not confused. I was the opposite of confused. For the first time in 2 years, I felt like I knew something true. Not a rule I had been told to follow. Not something I was supposed to believe because everyone around me believed it. Something I knew myself. Something that had happened to me personally. I did not sleep for the rest of that night. But I was not tired. I sat and I thought and I cried some more, but different crying this time. Not desperate crying. More like the kind of crying you do when something you have been worried about for a long time finally gets resolved and your body needs to release all the tension it has been holding. In the morning I went back to the mosque. I am a quiet person by nature. I do not make scenes. I do not raise my voice. I have spent most of my life trying not to be difficult or take up too much space. But I walked into that mosque that morning and I was not that person. I went to the section where they had been keeping Nadia, and when a man tried to stop me I spoke loudly enough that other people nearby looked over. I said I wanted my daughter back. I said what they had done to her was wrong. I said I did not care what they believed about her dreams. No grown men had the right to tie up a child and hit her, and I was not leaving without her. The teacher came out and he was angry. He told me I was being disrespectful. He told me I did not understand what was at stake for my daughter's soul. He told me to lower my voice. I did not lower my voice. I said I wanted Nadia and I wanted her now, and that if they did not bring her out I was going to stand in the middle of that mosque and tell every pilgrim who walked past exactly what had been done to my child in this building. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he spoke to someone behind him, and after a few minutes they brought Nadia out. She looked worse than the last time. Thinner. Her eyes had a dull look that scared me. But when she saw me her whole face changed. She started crying and came toward me, and I caught her and held her there in that hallway, and I did not care who was watching. The teacher told me that by taking Nadia away I was putting her in spiritual danger. He said that officially they would have to record that she had signs of mental illness and that I had removed her from care against advice. He said if I left Mecca now and never came back and never told anyone what had happened, he would not take the matter further. He said it in a very controlled way, like he was doing me a favor. I said fine, and I took my daughter and I walked out. We went back to the hotel room and I locked the door and I held Nadia for a long time. She told me about the 3 days. I am not going to write everything she told me because some of it is too hard to write. But she told me that even while the things were happening, she had not felt alone. She said she could feel someone there with her. She said Jesus had been with her the whole time. She said he told her to not be afraid, that her mother was coming. I told her about what had happened to me on the floor the night before. I told her about the light and the man and what he had said. Nadia listened with her head against my shoulder, and when I finished she was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "I knew he would go to you too." We stayed in that hotel room for 2 days. I took care of her the best I could. I went out only to get food and bring it back. I did not want to be anywhere near that mosque. We talked. We read the Bible verses Nadia had somehow found on her phone. We prayed together, but differently than we ever had before. Not in formal Arabic. Just talking. Just telling God what we felt and what we needed, and saying thank you even for the terrible things, because somehow, they had brought us here. On the 3rd day someone knocked on our door. I opened it just a little at first, cautious. There was a woman standing in the hallway. She was not Arab. She was lighter skinned, dark hair, maybe American or European, I could not tell immediately. She introduced herself quickly and said she was a journalist for an international news program. She said she had been in Mecca during the pilgrimage season doing a story on pilgrim experiences when she heard through some of the hotel staff about a girl who had been removed from mosque custody by her mother after being held for dreams about Jesus. She said she had been trying to find us for 2 days. I was careful. I did not open the door all the way. I asked her what she wanted. She said she only wanted to hear our story and that she would not do anything with it that I did not agree to. Something in her face made me open the door a little more. And then a little more. And then I let her in. We sat in that small hotel room, Nadia beside me, and I told her everything. She did not interrupt. She did not write things down. She just listened with her eyes fully on my face. When I finished, she sat quietly for a moment, and then she told me she believed every word. She told me she was a Christian, that she followed Jesus. And she told me that what had happened to us was not unusual. That all across the world, in countries where people had never held a Bible, where Jesus was only ever mentioned as a minor prophet, where believing in him would cost you everything, Jesus was showing up in people's dreams and calling them to follow him. She said she had met many people with stories like ours. She told me she had a team. People who helped families like us. She said what she was offering was not simple and would require trust. She said she understood if I said no. She said she would respect whatever I decided. I looked at Nadia. Nadia looked at me. And then Nadia nodded. Said yes. What happened after that I cannot fully describe. I made a promise not to share certain details because the same network of people who helped us may need to help others. What I can tell you is that within a week we were out of Saudi Arabia. The journalist and her team moved quietly and carefully, and they never once made me feel like I was just a project to them or a story to tell. They treated us like people. Like family, actually. We are in a safe place now. I'm not going to tell you where. There are other families here who have come from similar situations. People who found Jesus in places where finding Jesus could get you killed. People who lost homes and relatives and everything they built. People who are starting over with nothing except the one thing nobody can take from them. Nadia is doing better. Some days are hard. What happened to her in that room in Mecca is not something a child just forgets. She has moments where she gets very quiet, and I know she is back there in her mind. I sit with her and I hold her hand and we talk about it, and then we pray, and somewhere in the praying she comes back to the present. She is brave in a way that makes me proud and also breaks my heart, because no child should have needed to become that brave. But she also laughs again. That is the thing I hold on to most. She laughs at things again. Small things. A word someone says wrong. Something funny that happens during dinner. That laugh that I had been afraid I would never hear again. It comes back sometimes now, and every time it does I feel like something in my chest unlocks. The journalist checks on us often. She has become genuinely a friend to me. She talks to me not just about our situation but about life, about her own story, about what following Jesus has cost her too, because it has cost her things. She is not a person who talks about faith like it is easy or like it always makes everything better. She talks about it like it is real. Like it is sometimes hard and confusing and requires things from you that you are not sure you have. I trust her because of that. I think about Tariq often. I think about what he would say if he could see us now. I think he would be surprised. He was a faithful man, a believing man, But everything he believed pointed in a different direction than where we have ended up. I do not know what to do with that. I hold it carefully. I trust that the same God who came to find us in a hotel room in Mecca knows things I do not know. I leave Tariq in those hands. I am writing this because the journalist said I should. She said our story was not only ours to keep. She said there might be someone reading this who is in the middle of what we were in the middle of. A woman alone with her child. Grief she cannot shake. Prayers that feel like they are going nowhere. Something happening at night that she cannot explain and does not know what to do with. I want to speak to that woman directly for a moment. I was you. I really was. I woke up in the dark and heard my daughter's voice saying a name, and I was afraid. I went to people I trusted and they told me what I was afraid of hearing. I made decisions based on what I had been taught my whole life. And some of those decisions were wrong. Not because I was stupid. Because I was scared and I was trying to protect my child, and I trusted people who did not deserve the trust. If your child is dreaming about Jesus, please do not be afraid of those dreams. I know that sounds like something easy to say and hard to actually do. I know what it costs to consider it. But I am asking you to consider it. Not because of what I was taught. Because of what I experienced. Because of what I saw in that hotel room with my own eyes. Jesus came to me. A widow from Jordan in a hotel room in Mecca. He came to me when I had nothing left and no one to call and nowhere to go. He came because I asked him to. He came because he was already close. Whatever it costs you to follow him, he is worth it. I have paid a price. I have lost things. My community. My identity in some ways. My sense of who I am and what I belong to. Those losses are real and I do not pretend they are not. But what I found on the other side of those losses is also real. A God who is not distant. A God who came down to find me. A God who loved my daughter enough to show up in her dreams in the middle of the most Islamic city on earth and call her by name. That is not something I can be quiet about. Even though being quiet would be safer. Even though there are people who would rather I never told this story. Even though telling it makes me afraid sometimes when I think about who might see it. My name is Fatima Nasser. My daughter is Nadia. We were Muslims who found Jesus in Mecca. He was not what I expected him to be. He was so much more. And he is real. He is as real as the floor I fell on in that hotel room. As real as my daughter's bruised face. As real as the light that filled that dark room and the voice that told me he had heard every word. That is my story. That is our story. And it is true.